The idea for the Digital Freedom Fund actually comes from the digital rights community itself, and they together indicated that there was a great need to put more effort into strategic litigation to advance digital rights. And that led to development of the concept of the Digital Freedom Fund. We focus on supporting strategic litigation on digital rights in Europe. And by Europe we mean Council of Europe, so we look at Europe in a broad context. And by digital rights we mean human rights in the online and digital sphere. The main group of people that we're in contact with are the individuals and organizations that focus on strategic litigation, but we are also trying to figure out how to create greater connectivity between those who are doing the work on the ground and those that are engaged with digital rights in the form of, for example, research.
With any human rights litigation, you're normally trying to change something that's quite difficult to change, and it takes a long time. And digital rights is a new area where there are really complicated issues and people don't necessarily understand it. Judges don't understand it, the public don't understand it, the politicians don't understand it.
There's a lot to learn from the litigation of the past in areas like discrimination or freedom of expression or even LGBT litigation.
Your first case may just slowly begin to change the attitudes of the way people think about a particular problem. You might use your case to excite journalists to talk about the issue, to excite politicians to talk about the issue. You might use your case to educate judges into what this particular problem in digital rights means.
We discussed the possibility of using template litigation, demonstrating that this is a systemic and widespread problem that needs to be addressed, but also spreading out the risk and maybe setting precedent in some jurisdictions that you did not expect there to be a precedent.
And normally one of those then starts to win, and then that's the one you can follow up with.
It's important that we get the same protections that we have in the offline world, also in the digital world. And there you see that there's often still a lack of understanding of how technology works and what the impact is.
And for me, internet is just another platform where you actually exercise your human rights. It's actually a platform that's increasingly important in the context of exercising human rights. And therefore, they are also often violated there.
You have governments passing more intrusive surveillance legislations across Europe and across the world, to be honest. It's difficult yet to see how people, sort of the general public, can feel they can trust companies after all these scandals, but at the same time some of these companies are so powerful, they have such a kind of dominance in the market that is very difficult for ordinary people to simply opt out and move somewhere else.
There are all these companies like data brokers that amass vast amounts of data about us and know loads about us, but we don't even know their names, and we also don't often know what they do with the data and the consequences for us. So on the 25th of May, when GDPR came into effect in the EU, we launched a campaign looking at this hidden data ecosystem. So this is really just the beginning, and what we want to do with this campaign is use GDPR as a tool to investigate and also to hold to account. And then we will consider options for taking this further.
Integrating volunteers is an endless source of resources and inspiration and creativity, and in that sense it's really an interesting path. There is a learning curve on both sides, so both sides have to give. And volunteers are happy to help, but because they will do this on their free time, it's really important to also accompany them and say, it's just enough, it's fine, and then provide the structure around it.
We are challenging the really extensive surveillance laws in the UK, which unfortunately after the Snowden revelations were all made lawful under now the Investigatory Powers Act. So we have a challenge in the courts against that law, saying that it's unlawful, contrary to EU law and the ECHR, and that it violates our rights to privacy. So we hope to be successful. We've had some success already in the case, and it continues.
In 2006, in Ireland, a new data retention law was introduced in connection with EU law about data retention. Data retention means that data about your phone calls and your mobile phone location is stored and held at police request for 2 years. Our problem with this was we just believed this was wrong. It was wrong not just to be accessing the data or to abuse the data, but to be storing the data at all about people who hadn't done anything wrong, who hadn't committed any crime, and at a time when there wasn't a state of emergency or a war or anything like that, we just thought this retention was wrong. And that's why we challenged it in the Irish courts, and we got referred to the Court of Justice of the European Union. So now our case didn't just affect what would happen in Ireland, it would affect how data retention was treated across the entire 500 million people of Europe. So we've got our ruling, but we still have to get it implemented in practice. And similar things are happening across Europe. A few countries have implemented the change, but many countries have not. NGOs are working in many different countries, many jurisdictions, trying to get this implemented and trying to protect privacy.
Well, the litigation retreat is something that actually was developed during a recent strategy meeting that we had with different actors from across the digital rights field. People indicated that they wanted more opportunity to share skills with each other and have an opportunity to workshop cases and develop case strategies.
So this is the first time when we had the opportunity to deal with strategic litigation in depth. So it has been a real experience. We learned a lot.
Our time is really filled in with various workshops where we explore different issues, but at the same time it is not too difficult because it's very motivating and inspiring.
And at this moment in time, I think we're at the early stages of digital rights litigation, but there have been some huge victories already. Cases have been brought that have challenged the way that our data is controlled. Cases have been brought that look at the way that big companies use our data. And people are beginning to realize how much their lives are controlled by these large companies and the way that they handle their data. So I think we're at a moment now where the judges are realizing that. The judges are prepared to be a bit bolder. They're prepared to go up against the large companies, and they're prepared to say something has to be changed and this is how you need to change it.